Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then welcome. Today I'm going to be taking you through something a little bit different. This one's not necessarily a yoga flow, but more of a stretching session. So often beginners are shying away from the word yoga just because they either believe that it's going to be hard, you're going to have to, be put into all of these different crazy positions with binds, and it's quite fast-paced movements. So I thought I would title this one as a stretching session. And this one is targeted for those who are gym goers, who usually tend to have very tight shoulders, hips, and hamstrings. These stretches and this yoga routine and getting into the routine of yoga and stretching after the gym is going to help prevent those injuries. It's going to help recovery time. It's going to allow you to work with a deeper sense of mobility. So when you're doing things like squats or lunges or even shoulder press, you've got a whole deeper range of motion in these movements. So you can actually push the body a whole lot deeper than you would if you weren't stretching. I can sing its praises all day, but without further ado, let's get started. So grab your mat, grab some water, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so for today's practice, we're going to get started in a child's pose at the back of the mat. A really soft and gentle way to ease your way into this practice today. As you find a seat onto the heels, you start to hinge from the hips, the rib cage and the chest melts downwards onto the thighs. Extend the arms forwards and bow the head. Now for some, even this pose can feel quite difficult. So if you're feeling like the hips are quite raised up in this position, slot a blanket or a cushion just underneath you to create a bit of support. And then if the shoulders are feeling quite tight, open the hands out to come out nice and wide to the sides of the yoga mat or wherever you're practicing. And we're just using this pose as a way to ease into the hip creases, to ease into the shoulders. And to start to check in with you, start to tap into the breath. Just taking 3 cycles here. Then after your 3rd cycle, after you've completely emptied the body for that 3rd and final time, you can start to make your way up onto the hands and the knees, coming into a tabletop position. Now in this position, you can adjust to bring the knees underneath the hips, but don't worry about the palms here. We are going to be walking them out to extend further, but just to start off with, we'll work through some cat and cows. So breathing into the belly, open the heart space, roll the shoulders back, and take an inhale as you do so. Then as you exhale, you can start to press the floor away. Curl the tailbone underneath you. Take the gaze towards the belly button as you pull the shoulder blades apart. And just work through 4 more of these. So breathing in to open the heart space. Taking the gaze forwards, chin away from the chest. And exhale, we curl it all the way inwards. Spine upwards towards the ceiling. 3 more. Really beautiful. Now once you've taken that final cycle, that final one, start to flatten into the spine. Coming back into that tabletop position, walk the hands towards the top of the mat, making your way into puppy pose. Now the full variation is like this, keeping the wrists in line with the shoulders. The heart space starts to melt down, tailbone lifted high. So this is the full variation of your puppy pose. However, this can feel like a lot on the shoulders. So if you are feeling the tenderness there, open the hands out to the sides of the mat and you start to cultivate a little bit more space for you to stretch into. If it feels like a lot on the spine, know that you can take something underneath the chest to catch you and to hold you here. And you can also wiggle your way back to more of a child's pose position. Just working with whatever feels best to you. Settling yourself into a shape that feels good, where you can feel the stretch, a slight stimulation. And take 4 cycles of breath. And once you've taken that 4th and final cycle, slowly you can start to press into the palms. Peeling the heart space away from the yoga mat, slightly creep the hands inward just so you can tuck the toes under. And pick the knees up off of your mat, coming to a downward facing dog. Now keep this super easy and steady, bending into the knees. Take it lazy if you wish. Spreading the fingertips out nice and wide though. Sometimes when we come onto the wrists, it can feel like a lot of sensation. So just make sure you're placing the weight in the correct way, which would be in the fingers and into the knuckles, not dumping down into the wrists. And just pedal out the feet, bending into one knee, straightening into the other. If the hamstrings are tight, step the feet out nice and wide to the sides of the yoga mat. Easing your way into this position, chest pulls backwards towards the thighs. Find a deep breath in. And let it go. We start to soften into the knees and slowly creep the hands backwards towards the feet, finding the soles down onto the yoga mat and hinging from the hips, making your way into a forward fold. If you've got any props with you, like a block or a big chunky book or anything, you can take that just underneath the hands to support you. If the hamstrings are tight, feet can come out nice and wide, and you can take a bend into the knees. Within each fold that we take within the yoga practice, we want to make sure we're creating this hinge from the hips. So often we think we need to keep the legs straight and we curl ourselves round through like this, whereas actually you're not feeling any benefit into the hamstrings at all. We want to create this softness to melt yourself forwards. So even if that means taking a deep bend. And once again, we just spend 4 cycles of breath here, shifting the weight into the toes. Allowing the crown of the head to drop. Unclenching the jaw and softening the space between the brows. Then with an inhalation, you can start to lift the gaze forwards, like a halfway lift as you come up onto the fingertips. Continue with that soften into the knees as you then creep the hands back forwards to return to that downward facing dog. We then pick the right toes up away from the mat. Bending into the right knee, draw the knee towards your right wrist and open out the hip. So we're going to land the right shin down as well as your left knee. Coming into pigeon pose where you would tuck the left toes under and slide your way back. Now, if this feels like a lot and you're quite lifted up within this position, it's not something underneath that right glute. We want to make sure that the hips are level instead of dropping off to the side here and the knees pointing outwards. So any block or prop underneath you is going to assist. Sliding your way back, this might feel like enough. If you want a little bit more, drop down onto the forearms or even open the elbows and drop downwards towards the forehead. Now for some, even being in this position can feel like a lot. So if it does, swing the back leg round in front, cross the right ankle over the top. You can lay yourself back down, coming into your figure 4 pose instead. Now whatever position you decide to take 4 cycles of breath here. After your 4th cycle of breath, start to rise your way up to your seat. If you have the ankle hooked over the knee, then just simply uncross. And as you take it to the other side, you can just cross the left ankle over the top of the right. For those of you in Pigeon, start to tuck the left toes under and slide the left knee in. The right leg steps back. We either come into tabletop or return to downward facing dog. Ease your way out of the stretch, wiggle out the hips, pedal out the feet, and then take it over to the opposite side, sliding the left knee forwards, opening out the shin, landing the right knee down, and then tucking the toes under and sliding your way back. Either staying as you are or folding into your position. 4 cycles of breath, whether you are in Pigeon or you've taken something different. Then once you've taken your 4th and final cycle, start to press into the palms, lifting your way up to your Pigeon seat. We tuck the right toes under, slide the right knee in, step your way back into either tabletop or downward facing dog, ease out of the stretch. Really beautiful, guys, really, really nice. And we're going to come into our final hamstring stretch. So when you're ready, drop the knees downwards towards the mat. Untuck the toes, find a seat onto the heels. Just drop the hips to one side and swing the legs to come round in front of you. We bring the arms to come above the head as the legs stretch out. And if you want to slop anything underneath you, underneath the sit bones, to help fold you forwards, then please feel free. We'll take a soft bend into the knees, arms rise above the head as you inhale. Then as you exhale, loop the hands underneath the thighs and allow the head to bow down. For those of you who feel more open, you can start to ease the legs further away, maybe unraveling the arms and reaching for the toes instead. Either way, we come into a forward fold. Letting the head drop down, once again, that hinge from the hips, belly towards the tops of the thighs. 4 cycles of breath. Such a great way to ease out the hamstrings, letting gravity do the work as we fold down here. If you are quite an active person, then this is going to feel quite tender. Usually the hamstrings build up through a lot of cardio, or if you're doing a lot of weights working into the lower body, then as I say, you're going to feel the tenderness here. Then once you've taken that 4th and final cycle, roll your way up to your seat. And just take a moment to either cross the legs, find a comfortable position. Now, it was very short and sweet, that practice, but if you feel like you would like to go through that round again, please feel free to restart the video. That was only touching on a couple of poses that are good to do after the gym. I will be uploading a whole load more videos, so be sure to like and subscribe, click that notification button as well, so you can be notified when I do post any new videos. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed it. I would love to see you on the mat again soon. Thank you so much for joining me. From my heart to yours, namaste.